Hallo zusammen! Today I'm gonna translate the German Rammstein song Ich will to English, and I'm also gonna explain what makes the lyrics work, what makes them great, linguistically speaking. So, let's go! Ich will was released as the third single off of Rammstein's third album Mutter, Mother, in 2001, a long time ago. 20 years this year actually, wow. I was always intrigued by the song's basic sound and nature, even though it manages to evoke a certain underlying tension and kind of dark atmosphere in the verses, especially with the keyboards. And generally speaking, the song is a good example of many keyboard-driven songs by the band, because even though it might not be the most upfront, the most prominent instrument in the sound, the song wouldn't work atmospherically without it. Now, without having any background to the song, one could technically assume it's the direct contrary response to the questions being raised in Du hast. Willst du bis der Tod euch scheide, treu ihr sein für alle Tage? Nein! The phrase Ich will is quite closely connected to marriage and saying das Ja-Wort, literally the yes word, meaning giving a consent to marriage. Yes, I do. In German, people usually respond by saying either Ja, yes, ich will, I want to, or even a combination, Ja, ich will, yes, I want to, right now. In this case though, there's nothing especially marriage-like going on, I'm afraid, so let's actually take a look at the song's beginning. It's not the first verse, but rather an introduction to set the tone and rhythm. Ich will, I want, or I want to. The lyrical I repeats Ich will multiple times. This kind of repetition is a common stylistic device, especially in many older Rammstein songs with simple yet effective hooks. I mean, Du hast, anyone? Also similar to Du hast. Till starts with a basic outline of the lyrics, which then get worked out even more and increasingly as the song's progressing. This can be seen in the actual first verse. Ich will, dass ihr mir vertraut. Ich will, dass ihr mir glaubt. Ich will eure Blicke spüren. Ich will jeden Herzschlag kontrollieren. Ich will eure Stimmen hören. Ich will die Ruhe stören. Ich will, dass ihr mich gut seht. Ich will, dass ihr mich versteht. If you've watched my video about Keine Lust by Rammstein as well, you might recognize a similar translation method I used here. The recurring structure Ich will, das can be translated in various ways, and therefore I chose different translations on purpose to show you that. The most literal one is I want that blah 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 happens, for instance. It's basically a very short main clause followed by a subordinate clause introduced by das. Ich is the first person singular personal pronoun in nominative and the subject here. I. Will is by no means to be confused with the English will, and it's the first person singular Präsens indicative mode active form of the irregular verb wollen, to want. It can be a modal verb, as in Ich will dich sprechen, I want to talk to you, but it can also function as a full verb, which requires an accusative object. It's a transitive verb. Das with double S is not to be confused with the article das with just one S, by the way. In fact, many Germans write das with one S, even though das with double S would be correct in certain contexts, being a conjunction, or rather a subjunction since it introduces a subordinate clause. So, that is one of the most common grammatical mistakes made by native Germans in their own language, I'd say. Definitely. So please don't learn it the wrong way. Except for the sentence to start with the subordinate part, das with double S needs to be accompanied and introduced by a comma, as it's the case in the lyrics. The first mentioned version would be possible too. Dass ihr mir vertraut, will ich. Using this option will also affect the word order, as you can see. The second part of these lines with das is not just a subordinate clause though. It also works as der Objektsatz, the object clause. The whole subordinate clause functions as the accusative object to the main clause. Lines 3 to 6 differ from the other ones in that they make use of the aforementioned modal version of wollen. You can also see that because all these sentences contain another verb at the end. Spüren, kontrollieren, hören, stören. From the way I've just verbalized these verbs, you might have heard a difference in terms of the way Till does it in the song, which is also the common, usual, daily German way to pronounce them. Spüren, hören, kontrollieren, and so on, right? So he basically drops the E at the end, which is a really common phenomenon with many German words that end in the suffix en, en. Germans simply drop the E. It doesn't really get pronounced. Semantically, the lyrical I addresses not just one person, as it's usually the case in most Rammstein lyrics written from the ego, the first-person perspective, but rather a group of people. They basically want to make sure they get some attention, and well, to me, this might indeed be one of the lesser ambiguous songs in their catalog. I think it definitely is about the band, and maybe even Till Lindemann himself as the singer and frontman who asks the audience to pay attention and to basically enjoy the show, to participate in that, which in turn also benefits the band's joy on stage, of course. Even though Till rarely has direct off-song conversations with the audience, this whole song could make up for that in a way. It could be interpreted as one. I think this potential interpretation of mine also gets underlined by the aforementioned repetition of the short and catchy phrase Ich will. Line 4 kind of deviates from the usual structure of the other lines here. This one doesn't feature a direct repetition of Ich will at the beginning, but rather relies on the single Ich will and rather continues that directly. By doing so, it adds a little unexpected flavor to the verse as a whole, I think. The last line features the German verb verstehen in the second person plural Präsens indicative mode active, ihr versteht. Whereas you'd stick with verstehen in both contexts, you might want to use different terms when you first mean to understand, hearing someone loud and clear, or when you second want to make sure someone comprehends your train of thought, arguments and the like. To avoid confusion, you could also use the term nachvollziehen instead of verstehen in the second option. Counterintuitively, the song doesn't continue with the chorus, but leads right into the second verse after a short repetition of the song's initial hook. Ich will eure Fantasie. Ich will eure Energie. Ich will eure Hände sehen. Ich will in Beifall untergehen. Seht ihr mich? Versteht ihr mich? Fühlt ihr mich? Hört ihr mich? Again, it's a pretty direct lyrical approach here. We can also see the recurring structure in line 4, where Ich will does only get mentioned once. The last 4 lines break the previous structure though. They aren't demands, but direct questions. Die Frage, Singular. Die Fragen, Plural. I went with a do you structure, but you could as well ask, are you seeing me, for instance, and so on. The whole potential nature of the song might imply that these questions are being asked right now, but they could also be understood as general questions which apply to any kind of situation, a general context. It's interesting when you think about it, because when performed live, it has a much more direct and in-your-face influence and power, if you will, as opposed to just being heard on the record. At least to me. Remaining in that potential context here, the chorus eventually connects the dots, as the second part of each line is the reply from the crowd. Könnt ihr mich hören? Wir hören dich! Könnt ihr mich sehen? Wir sehen dich! Könnt ihr mich fühlen? Wir fühlen dich. Ich verstehe euch nicht. I like how Till occasionally overstresses certain letters in songs, which adds an unexpected expressive flavor. In this case, he stresses the umlaut Ü in line 3. What's linguistically fascinating is just from the English translation, you couldn't say if the lyrical I is addressing one or multiple people, because the personal pronoun you would be used for various German singular and plural forms in translations. The recurring ihr tells us it's more than just one person the lyrical I is talking to here, or asking. It's the second person plural personal pronoun. The last line refers to a popular thing many frontmen or women do when they are interacting with the crowd live on stage. They say something like, "I can't hear you, what was that? Scream louder," and yeah, that kind of stuff, you know? They basically motivate the audience to be even more active, enthusiastic, invested. In order to make the meter, or rather the verbalized length of the last line work and sound good, Till uses the common colloquial short form of verstehe, where Germans just drop the E. The bridge goes like this. Wir wollen, dass ihr uns vertraut. Wir wollen, dass ihr uns alles glaubt. Wir wollen eure Hände sehen. Wir wollen in Beifall untergehen. Ja. This time the linguistic perspective has shifted from ich, I, to wir, we, in other words. Staying in the band's performing live scenario I've talked about, the lyrical I has shifted from one person to the whole band. Again, I tried to demonstrate how this recurring German structure could be translated in English in various ways. Last but not least, instead of Ich versteh euch nicht, the last chorus also switches to Wir verstehen euch nicht, we don't understand you. What I hope though is this video could actually help you understand or comprehend, verstehen, the song and what it's all about, what makes it special. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and to share this video with others, because that is the best way to promote, to support the channel if you really want to do that. Thanks so much in advance, that is greatly appreciated, it really helps. I'm your Vlog Dave, tschüss und bis zum nächsten Mal.